So removing mill scale, I actually made a mistake, and I picked up hot rolled steel, where I am just putting a clear coat on it, so I had to remove the mill scale. You know, let's say if you're painting it, maybe you don't have to do it because you know you'll be covering it up. So I had like a tough time getting rid of that mill scale, and I've tried all kinds of different grinding discs, flap discs. I've even tried different brands of grinding discs, and here's what I came up with that seemed to work a little bit better than most. So here's the grinders. I've used a grinding disc DeWalt Mastercraft from Canadian Tire, the almighty, and Diablo, Sat, I don't know how to pronounce that correctly, correct me if I'm wrong. I've used Walter flap discs. Now I've used a 40 predominantly because any other one just doesn't cut it. And I tried the Lindy. So these, and I also tried sandpaper. So I tried sandpaper. I pretty much tried everything on it. And what happens is when you try to remove mill scale, it just becomes like a really almost like a ceramic surface, and I'm hitting it with, even the grinding wheels didn't want to go through it, so they would get kicked up. And then I used a diamond stone, I guess. I don't know how you call that properly, but for cleaning the stone, or for squaring the stone, I've used that. That worked pretty decent. So the only thing that kind of worked, surprisingly, was a belt sander. Now this is the Norton 3 times, or X3, whatever they call it. And this is really aggressive. This is like a 50 grit sandpaper, and I was going at it with this sandpaper. It was still pretty difficult, but actually it worked. So I was surprised with that. I kind of gave it a shot out of, like, you know, let's try that. So it worked, and it also gives me this uniform finish on the metal. So it almost gives me this brushed stainless steel look. I think I would have done this out of stainless steel, it would have been better. The only problem that I had is, you know, when I started the table, I did the base out of metal, so I just figured whatever, it has to kind of match the same sheen and color. So yeah, so that's mill scale removal. Belt sander worked pretty much best for me. It still took quite a bit of time to do, and I know that you can use acid and things like that. The problem with acid is I'm in Canada right now, it's cold outside. I don't want to have acid fumes inside my garage. And out of these grinding discs, the one that I was also surprised with, the DeWalt grinding disc, it's the high performance one, worked pretty much the best. Seemed to have like the toughest grit on it. So when I was grinding the mill scale, it actually was biting into it. Otherwise, all the rest of them, they were not. At first, they started biting in, you know, quite okay, and then after a while, I think they would just glaze over and they just become useless. So same thing with this one. So all of them pretty much had the same effect, except the DeWalt. So now that surprised me also, because I would think that DeWalt is a tool company, not a, you know, and they probably had this just rebranded from some other company. and whoever makes this for them actually makes really nice grinding disc. So from now on I'll be buying the DeWalt for sure. Lindy, they all seem to be the same, so like Lindy, Seat, and Diablo, same stuff. Walter, the 40 grit is really amazing. I don't like the fact that they just printed all the grits on the front, and you don't really know what grit you're picking up after a while. You got to really kind of go inside here and see the markings on the inside, and they're kind of visible. You know, they're when they're caked over. When they're new, you can't really see it all that good, but when they're used, they're caked over with this black dust on them, so you can sort of see it. So this is a 40 and this is a 60. So, but at first I was kind of perplexed. I'm looking at it and I'm like, what the hell? You know, where do you find the grit on this? And then I found out it's in the back here. So yeah, so the Walter works really good. This Rock, this one is pretty good too. I don't know where I got this one, but I have it for a long time, and this is very aggressive. Sandpaper is very good at first of removing mill scale on the grinding disc. Problem with that is it just doesn't last long. You know, after a couple of passes, it just glazes over and just polishes the mill scale. So yeah, so the belt sander, number one, and then the old grinding disc. Now the DeWalt grinding disc, you know, I'll just go first in the spots, as the belt sander doesn't get into your if you have a small dip in the metal, the belt will not do it. So you got to go in with a grinder, touch it up, and then come back with a belt sander. So that's yeah. So that's that for mill scale.